Welcome to the next episode of our podcast. We are so happy that you are continuing to join us. My name is Keegan Brown. I'm the pastor of Bates Memorial and Trinity United Methodist down in the Snow Hill portion of our parish. And I'm joined by Pastor Karen Sadberry, who is one of the pastors at Community Church in Ocean Pines on the north side of our parish. And today we're going to be going through John 9 and 10. And so there we have the man who says, I was once blind and now I see. And we have Pastor Karen here who says, I was once retired and now I run a podcast. So thank you for coming, Karen. I appreciate you being with us. So I think we're going to start today by actually reading, believe it or not, everybody, the entire chapter of 9. So buckle up and sit down because Karen's going to read the whole thing to you. Go ahead, Karen.
As Jesus walked along, he saw a man who was blind from birth. Jesus' disciples asked, Rabbi, who sinned so that he was born blind, this man or his parents? Jesus answered, neither he nor his parents. This happened so that God's mighty works might be displayed in him. While it's daytime, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. After he said this, he spit on the ground, made mud with the saliva, and smeared the blood on the man's eyes. Jesus said to him, Go, wash in the pool of Siloam. This word means sent. So the man went away and washed. When he returned, he could see. The man's neighbors and those who used to see him when he was a beggar said, Isn't this the man who used to sit and beg? Some said, It is. And others said, No, it's someone who looks like him. But the man said, Yes, it's me. So they asked him, How are you now able to see? He answered, The man they called Jesus made mud, smeared it on my eyes, and said, Go to the pool of Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see. They asked, Where is this man? He replied, I don't know. Then they led the man who had been born blind to the Pharisees. Now Jesus made the mud and smeared it on the man's eyes on a Sabbath day. The Pharisees also asked him how he was able to see. The man told them, He put mud on my eyes, I washed, and now I see. Some Pharisees said, This man isn't from God because he breaks the Sabbath law. Others said, How can a sinner do miraculous signs like these? So they were divided. Some of the Pharisees questioned the man who had been born blind again. What do you have to say about him, since he healed your eyes? He replied, He's a prophet. The Jewish leaders didn't believe the man had been blind and received his sight until they called for his parents. The Jewish leaders asked them, Is this your son? Are you saying he was born blind? How can he now see? His parents answered, We know he's our son. We know he was born blind, but we don't know how he now sees, and we don't know who healed his eyes. Ask him. He's old enough to speak for himself. His parents said this because they feared the Jewish authorities. This is because the Jewish authorities had already decided that whoever confessed Jesus to be the Christ would be expelled from the synagogue. That's why his parents said, He's old enough, ask him. Therefore, they called a second time for the man who had been born blind and said to him, Give glory to God. We know this man is a sinner. The man answered, I don't know whether he's a sinner. Here's what I do know. I was blind, and now I see. They questioned him. What did he do to you? How did he heal your eyes? He replied, I already told you, and you didn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? They insulted him. You are his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples. We know that God spoke to Moses, but we don't know where this man is from. The man answered, This is incredible. You don't know where he's from, yet he healed my eyes? We know that God doesn't listen to sinners. God listens to anyone who is devout and does God's will. No one has ever heard of a healing of the eyes of someone born blind. If this man wasn't from God, he couldn't do this. They responded, "You were born completely in sin. How is it that you dare to teach us?" Then they expelled him. Jesus heard that they had expelled the man born blind. Finding him, Jesus said, "Do you believe in the human one?" He answered, "Who is he, sir? I want to believe in him." Jesus said, "You have seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." The man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped Jesus. Jesus said, "I have come into the world to exercise judgment so that those who don't see can see, and those who see will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him heard what he said and asked, "Surely we aren't blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you wouldn't have any sin. But now that you say we see, your sin remains."
So that's a lot.
Yes, it is.
There's a lot going on. And for those of you at home, we were looking at saying, how could we break this down? And there's no way to break this apart. Like this is one of those times when you're at a banquet and you just have to eat it all. And so we appreciate you going along for that dinner with us. So, Karen, as we go into this, what is your opinion of the imagery that Jesus does by using mud?
Takes us back to creation. And especially that second story where God gets down and literally forms Adam from the dust of the ground.
And you've got to love that connection of how he didn't need to do that. But I think he was demonstrating that, like, I created you from dirt before. I can
Right.
heal you the same way if you'll just let me. Which, I mean, this guy had nothing to lose. Like, put mud in my eyes, put whatever you want in my eyes if you can make me see, because he'd been born that way. And I loved that how it all starts because the disciples are just convinced somebody did something wrong,
Mhm.
right? Like, and it really just shows where their minds were at that time.
And the funniest thing, it's like, who sinned, this man or his parents? Now, how can you sin before you're blind? Before you're born, I mean.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
No, no.
But this story also takes us back to a couple other stories. It takes us back all the way to the Old Testament and to Naaman, the
Okay.
Syrian who had leprosy, and
Yeah.
his healing was to go and wash in the Jordan, and he resisted those instructions. But this man didn't resist.
Right.
And it also takes us to that other healing story where the man was sitting at this very same pool, waiting for the waters to be stirred up and had all kinds of excuses. Instead of just when Jesus said, "Do you want to be made well?" Instead of saying yes, he said, "Well, I never can get to the water in time." And this
Yeah.
man made no excuses. He
None.
just went and did what Jesus said.
Right. And to your point, what's super interesting in this is that Jesus puts the mud on his eyes, but then instructs me, but now go do this. So there was still this act of faith he had to do in order to get the healing. It wasn't just Christ doing it out of being a gift, which, I mean, obviously giving him his sight back was a gift. I'm not trying to undermine that. But there were times when, like, the woman touched his garment and she was just healed. Right.
Right.
In this case, there was her act of faith was just in, like, fighting to get to Jesus, where in this case,
Mhm.
Jesus was like, okay, if you want this, you need to basically put your actions where you're saying your faith is and go prove
Right.
it. And I think that
Right.
that's in some ways what Christ asks of us is every one of us, when we come to Christ, he calls us to something and we got to have the faith to go do it. And there's some people that it takes a long time. I'm guilty, right? And there's some people who know it and just dive right in. I think that that's what this guy does. And that's why nobody believes it. Like, he had the faith and he went. So,
But he's also kinda like the woman with the 2 coins where he's got nothing to lose. I think you see that. He's got nothing to lose, so why not? And sometimes we don't realize we got nothing to lose, you know?
yeah. Why not go for it? Because if Christ has done this for you, but the challenge that this poor guy had was that his test of faith didn't stop there, right? Because then he kept being called before the Pharisees, like not once, multiple times. And he had to keep answering to this healing because they so wanted this man to stay in darkness. And I think that that's almost a alliteration to how they were leading the Jewish people.
Right.
They
Right.
got the Messiah right there, and they're like, no, I think you guys should stay in darkness. Don't go over there to the light. And I find it interesting because this is the second time where Christ talks about the light. Like just
Right.
one chapter earlier in 8, he does the same thing.
Right.
And the Pharisees are like, not really having that, right? Like you can't be the one who fulfills the prophecy. And I think it just goes back to their what really is systemic racism, because they're still stuck on the nothing good comes out of Galilee,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like you're
Right.
not. I wish they had actually taken the time to do what we would do today with social media. We'd be like, okay, who are your parents, your grandparents, where were you born, blah blah blah, right? They'd have known he was born in Bethlehem, right? They would have figured it out.
The thing that always strikes me about this story is nobody celebrates with this man.
Well, I never picked up on that.
Not one person
Even his
says,
parents.
"Yay, it must be so fabulous." Because this man's sight wasn't restored. He had never had sight.
Wow.
And it must have been a little disconcerting and to have no one rejoice with him. I mean, I love the townspeople who go, some of them say, yeah, this was the man who used to beg. But
hmm
some of them say, no, it's just somebody who looks like him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how often, when somebody is transformed, do we wait to celebrate? Do we like kind of, well, let's see if it sticks, you know? He's
Interesting.
been an addict for a really long time. We're just going to watch him real close and see if he goes in that bar, if he buys some drugs. We're just going to wait and see if this is for real.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is not, it was not what Christ is calling us to do at all. And I think that that probably also leads to one other thing, in that how do you think that Jesus takes this as a story to teach us how God sometimes uses our hardships to help us to grow and prune us and just be that sanctifying grace in our life versus punishment, which some people always think that that's how God like
Right,
sanctifies us, right? So how
right.
do you think Jesus is kind of pointing that out to the disciples here?
This man, his faith grew the more people argued with him. I mean, even his
Yeah,
parents threw him under the bus.
sure did.
They wanted so badly to not be thrown out of the synagogue. It's like, well, we don't know anything. Go ask him. You
Yeah,
know, he's old enough.
he's old enough. Yeah,
And so, as he went through all those rejections, all those people who won't stand up with him,
yeah,
just like that woman in the well, he kept he was a prophet. And then when Jesus said, I'm the Messiah, it's like, yeah, I think that's right. I could buy that, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And he really stood up to the Pharisees, like, you know, I don't know what you're talking about, but nobody has ever healed somebody who is born blind ever before.
right. Right. And that's what Jesus says, is that neither the man or his parents did, but he was born blind so God's work might be revealed in him. This was his divine appointment. And I feel really bad for him that he had to grow up blind because we needed this in our Bible 2,000 years later. And that's what he's saying here. Because it didn't just point it out to the disciples and to those there in here for a reason so that we can think that way. So this poor guy, I truly hope I meet him in heaven to just shake his hand and say, thank you for living your whole life blind for me. You didn't know you were doing that, but here we are. So, let me read to you John chapter 9.
You are the star of this story.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, let's go ahead and move on though,
Okay.
because I want to make sure that we get to John chapter 10, because Advent will come and we need to make it through the book of John, right? Before
Right.
Advent. So I believe we said we were going to start here at verse 11 and go all the way down to 21, correct? Okay. So I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because the hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock and one shepherd. For this reason, the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. I received this command from my Father. And again, the Jews were divided because of these words. Many of them were saying, he has a demon and he's out of his mind. Others were saying, these are not the words of one who has a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of So in here, I absolutely love that this is one of those times when Jesus says, "Hey, Jews, you were where salvation was to come, but it's not just for you. You don't
Hmm.
have like the whole lockdown on salvation. I'm actually here for everyone," which
Right.
I want to think that that's why some are like, this guy's got a demon in him, right? Because the Messiah is only here to save us from Rome, right? Not really realizing, no, I'm kind of saving you from sin and Satan here, right? Rome's not your biggest problem.
And that takes us all the way back to Genesis. I mean, the people may have forgotten it, but when God first called Abraham and told him to go, he said, all the nations of the world would be blessed because of you. So from the very beginning, they should have known that this wasn't just for them. But, you know, people have not changed in all this time because, like you said, we still want to claim it just for ourselves.
Right. Other thing that's interesting is that when he's talking about, that it's not just good, he's saying it's noble, it's beautiful. Like he really sets the standard really high for what it means to be the good shepherd. Because I don't know that we always think of it that way. I think we look at like, oh yeah, you have good shepherds and bad shepherds, right? Because the bad shepherds ran away and the wolves got them, right?
Right, right,
When he's saying I'm the good shepherd, he's like, I'm truly the bar. I'm the bar that everybody should be living up to. And that's why my sheep hear my voice. Right. And that because my sheep hear my voice, they'll follow me wherever I'm going to lead them. And if we take this back a chapter and we talk about the faith of the guy who had to go to the pool, right? I think it's the same thing. It's like if we're truly listening to his voice, he's going to send us places and we're going to hear his voice and we're going to go. And I think we're charged with truly being those sheep. And we have this connotation in our culture we've built now where they say that, oh, you don't think for yourself, you're just a sheeple, right? Well, guess what? I want to be a sheeple of Christ. I'm
right,
sorry. Like,
right.
call me sheeple all day long.
But it also speaks to any of us that are in leadership, whether we're pastors or lay leaders or whatever, to be also good shepherds, to care about the people, to not have that attitude, well, I'm getting paid to do this, but I don't have to put my heart into it,
Yeah.
to not be those ones that run away when things get tough. And that's a hard message because running is a big instinct, you know?
Yes. That's why it's called
This is
fight or
just
flight.
too hard.
Yeah. And I think also that, Christ says that those of us in these positions as pastors, we're going to be held to a higher standard, and so whether you be like a CLM or lady that's serving, right? Like I think you're just as accountable as say you and I are. That if you're out leading people, Christ is going to hold you to a standard, and you need to be making sure that you are being a good representation of the good shepherd. You're not one of the ones that runs away and lets the wolf get
Right,
in.
right. And it's also I sound like a broken record, I know, but it's also so relational that I know my sheep and they know me. The Father knows me, and I give up my life for the sheep, and I have other sheep. It's so relational.
Yeah.
And it's that abiding also that we are all in a lasting relationship. It's not a flash in the pan. It's not just for the moment. It's eternal. And so we need to just make those connections and hold on to them.
And when you talk about making those connections and hold on to them, I think one of the things that Christ is talking about here when he's talking about the false shepherds, right, is I think it's a lot of distractions. And what do you think that as a believer in today's society, where I mean, I think we have more distractions than any other generation known to man. Like, what do you think we can learn as believers on how to avoid the distractions and keep in tune with the voice of the shepherd?
Some of it's just intention. If we are concerned about the well-being of the whole rather than just ourselves, because most of the distractions in our world are distractions that call us to feather our own nest, so to speak, to make sure that we're in a good place, that we have what we need, that we have a comfortable life. Whereas if we listen to this, it's telling us to make sure that everyone has a good life, that
Hmm.
everyone is protected. And there are so many people in our nation and in the world who are not protected right now.
That's true.
And the church needs to work to increase the number of people who have a sense of protection.
Yeah, that's very fair. That's very, very fair. So let me shift a little bit though,
Okay.
because when you talk about that protection, I think it's also goes to what Christ talks about. And so in verse, was it 17, it talks about he voluntarily lays down his
Right.
life,
Right.
right? And which is one of the best things for us as believers, right? Because he wasn't forced to do it. He did it out of love for us. And I think what you're leading to is that as believers, we're required, not asked, required to follow that example
Uh-huh.
and be willing to voluntarily go to the less fortunate, go to the unprotected, go to those who don't have the cover that maybe some of us are blessed with.
Right.
And how do you see that connection between what Christ did for us voluntarily to what you're talking about now on what the church really needs to step up and do?
Well, that he lays down his life, and we're all called to lay down our lives. Now, we're not all called to die. It's not a call for martyrs.
I'm grateful for. I hope that stays true for me.
Yeah. And me too. But
Well, you're retired.
yeah, we're called to, you know, give all that we are and all that we have in service of God. Not just those of us who are ministers, but all of us who are Christians are called to metaphorically at least lay down our lives, to commit our whole lives. And I want to go back and see how these two stories connect a little bit too, because we see Jesus as the good shepherd in this story of the man born blind, because when they cast him out, Jesus went and found him. He
Yeah.
was that good shepherd, and he went and found this man that had been cast out of the synagogue. And he went and found him, and he, in a sense, brought him back home, let him know that he was the Messiah and that that relationship was intact.
That's that's beautiful because you're absolutely right on that. It's goes right back to the one in the 99. It was
Mhm.
important to go find this one.
Right, right.
And then look at the impact that one had.
Yeah, we're still
Talking
talking
about him
about it
for the
now.
last 15 minutes, right? Like, I mean, and about what we can learn from this poor man's experience. That's really what it is. So, as we close out this week's episode, Karen, here comes the $1,000,000 question. There's nothing that makes me happier than asking the $1,000,000 question at the end of the episode. And for those of you home, I don't even give her any kind of heads up as to what it is. I just keep it in my back pocket. So it's like the highlight of my entire week. So here's the closeout question. We have this situation where you have in chapter 9, you got a man that's born blind, right? And then you got a good shepherd, right? And it talks about how these, it actually says in here that he thought he had a demon. And the people are saying,
Right.
no, he can't have a demon because he just made a person who's blind see again, right? So when you look at those two things, what do you think is happening in the hearts of the Israeli Jews at that time, where they're now divided, trying to discern outside of the Pharisees what's going on? Because that's one of these times where we see them say, I don't know if I trust you, Pharisees. We're going to discern this on our own.
And I think that there is a group, the ones that are sticking up for Jesus, that can start to see who he is and that they have not necessarily had good shepherds up to this point.
Totally
But
fair.
I think the other group is perhaps afraid of what that means.
And everybody, this is why I hold it to the end, because she always comes out with something super insightful. So, all right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us this week. We will see you next week when we go to the all important passage on Jesus weeping. So, we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.